I have some exclusive tea that I want to share with you guys about Kurtis. For those of you guys who don't remember Kurtis, he was the one who got knocked out by Kevin in a previous season of Love After Lockup. And I had just reported that he was arrested after he took this man's life after they got into an argument. They pulled knives out on each other. And Kurtis decided to hop into his truck and run this man over. And the man ended up passing away at the hospital. Well, now Kurtis is currently locked up for that charge for taking that man's life. He was also caught with some drugs on him. And as soon as I posted about that, one of his former roommates slid into my DMs and shared his experience living with Kurtis and shared a lot of receipts. We got pictures, we got videos. It's a lot, so let's go ahead and get into it. I checked my Instagram DMs. I had this message from this guy, and he says, I can send you pictures of the condition he kept himself. I'm the roommate after the camper ordeal. If you guys are not sure what the camper ordeal was, at the beginning of the year, Kurtis decided to buy himself a camper because he had a truck and he was struggling having a consistent place to stay. And he's like, okay, I'll live in this camper. And after he purchased it, it ended up getting stolen after he gave the keys to this girl when he went to jail. And after this whole incident, he got out of jail. He finally got his truck back, but he never found his camper. And he didn't have anywhere to go. So he gave one of his friends a sob story. And his friend was friends with this guy, and he reached out to him. He's like, hey, one of my homies, he needs a place to stay. And he's like, okay, I got you, but he's gonna have to help out with rent. And he promised he would help out with rent, and we'll get more into that here in a second. But he said, I helped him get his truck out of impound. He only paid back $300 of the $1,200 loaned. Never paid diamond rent, allowed him here the first 2 months for free. After 2 more months or no rent, but it's obvious he has money for drugs and hookers. Actual meth needles, the whole bit, as actual meth head dope fiends. I had to forcefully remove him. I had been telling him to leave for over a month. I kicked him out. I threw all of his stuff on the curb, and people who passed by picked it over. All my neighbors absolutely hated that guy. In and out, all hours of the night, always being too doped out to remember to close the garage at 2, 3, 4, and 5 a.m., just leaving it open, and told me I was paranoid, that I was pissed someone could have stolen my lawn equipment, etc. from my garage. Then one night, he was scraping metal from dumpsters. He stopped by the house.
We didn't throw this stuff on the floor. This was already on the floor, shoved underneath his bed and shit. I know I'm not the best housekeeper, but it goddamn sure wasn't me trashing this kind of house like that. Not like that. Fucking dope pipes and shit.
When Kurtis first moved in, he did not have that much stuff because he had just lost everything that he had inside his camper. And I guess he moved in with this guy, and within a few months, he acquired all this stuff that we're seeing in his room by digging through different people's trash cans. This is just so foul. You can see in these pictures all the needles he has scattered all over his room, and a lot of them don't even have the cap on them. So this man can easily get poked and possibly catch something. He's like showing zero respect for this man's house, leaving the points and leaving the caps everywhere. He's not even trying to hide it. And this guy let him move in, and he's like, okay, I feel bad for your situation. You just got out of jail and you're robbed, so I'll let you stay for 2 months free, which was very kind of him. He didn't have to do that. Those 2 months were supposed to be so Kurtis could find a job so he could start helping out with the rent. And after those 2 months were over with, he's like, okay, you can stay 2 more months, but you're going to have to pay me $1,200 for the next 2 months. But the guy really didn't fully trust Kurtis, so What they did is they sat down and they decided to come up with this contract where Kurtis was agreeing to give this guy his truck if he didn't pay the $1,200 that he owes 2 months from now in rent. And I saw the video that this man took of them writing out the contract. You see this guy, and he didn't want me to share the video because it shows his face, but then you see Kurtis signing and agreeing to it. Kurtis ended up not paying any of the rent for the next 2 months, and the dude started telling him, like, look, it's time for you to move out. And he said he did try going to the DMV to try to get the truck from Kurtis like they had agreed in the agreement, but the DMV would not recognize it because they did not get the agreement notarized. So he just took the L and moved on, but he said he was going through hell trying to get Kurtis to leave. He was telling Kurtis for over a month straight, dude, you gotta go. This is not working out. You gotta go. And Kurtis was just not listening and taking it seriously. And I think it's because he didn't have a backup plan. So he's going to try to milk staying there as long as possible. I asked him, I said, does it really surprise you that Kurtis took another man's life? Did you see any red flags, any warning signs? And he said, yes, actually I did. He said that Kurtis knew for over a month that he had wanted him to move out. And he said when he kicked Kurtis out, he ended up going into his room and looking in his drawer, and he found this butcher knife that Kurtis had stolen from his knife set, and he had it hidden in his drawer right next to his bed. The roommate believed if it wasn't for him getting Kurtis out the way he did, he believes that Kurtis was going to use that on him because he knew he was going to be getting kicked out, and things had become pretty tense between the two. The roommate knew that Kurtis was not going to leave without a fight, so he called up 3 of his biggest friends that are super jacked, and he had them come over and sneak in while Kurtis was there, and he had his biggest friend sit in the bathroom, and then he called Kurtis to the living room. He's like, hey Kurtis, come here, I want to show you something. And when Kurtis came out, once he passed the bathroom and started approaching his friend came out from the bathroom and blocked Kurtis from going back to his room. And he said, nope, you're not going back to your room. You're getting the F out right now. And Kurtis was begging and pleading, like, please let me just grab my vape. I need my vape. I need a few of my things. And then 3 more of his buddies came out and they surrounded him. They told Kurtis, you got 2 options. Either you can walk out from here or we're going to carry you out. And Kurtis started walking out, but at first he stopped and he started clenching his fist like he's about to throw a punch. His roommate noticed that he was eyeing the knife set and looked like he was about to punch somebody to try to make his way to a knife and start trying to slash people. So he knew that he had to act quick. So the roommate shoved him, and 2 other of his friends started shoving Kurtis, and Kurtis ran for the door, and he was running out the door screaming, oh my God, they're trying to hurt me. They're trying to hurt me. And he ran to neighbors and said he was calling the police, but he dipped out before the police showed up. He didn't want to just leave Kurtis stranded after kicking him out, so he made sure he had a mutual friend there to give Kurtis a ride after he was kicked out of the house. And he's like, look, I didn't just leave him with nothing. I did end up going and grabbing his vape for him and a few of his belongings, and I told him that the rest of his stuff will be on the curb, so come grab it from the curb. But he claims Kurtis never came. And these are pictures of all his stuff on the curb, and it sat there for a long time and people slowly picked it over. And he said, look, he had ample enough time to leave and figure things out, and finally he didn't leave, so this is what had to be done. His former roommate said he ruined my freaking life. Not only did he affect me, but he also affected my ex-girlfriend. When Kurtis had just moved in with him, he had just started dating this girl, and he feels like this is like one of the best girls he's ever pulled before. She was super gorgeous, she was checking all the boxes, and he was really excited about this relationship. And he would go over and spend the night at this girl's house, and he had this app on his phone that would tell him every single time the garage door opened. And when him and this girl were sleeping in the middle of the night, him and her were constantly being woke up all night long. Every 20 minutes he was getting another notification that his garage door was opening at 2 in the morning, 2:20 in the morning, 2:40 in the morning, nonstop. And he was realizing that Kurtis kept opening the garage door, but a lot of these times he wasn't closing it. So he would have to wake up, call Kurtis, and say, man, why are you leaving my garage door open? I don't want my stuff getting stolen. And he said that a lot of the times Kurtis would not answer the phone. And so he had to take things into his own hands, and he would have to jump in his car, drive to his house, and fix the garage door and put it back down. And he said that happened literally every single night when he would spend the night at this girl's house, to the point where every single night was getting ruined. After this had happened so many times, he finally told this girl, look, how about you come spend the night with me in case something happens, I don't have to get up and go run back to my house to shut the garage. And she's like, okay. And she comes over, and when she went over there, Kurtis had some girl over there, I guess, that he was hooking up with, and he said it looked like she was whacked out. And after his girlfriend had saw that girl, she's like, man, I feel like the real reason you've been leaving in the middle of the night is to come over and F the dope whores that Kurtis has over here in the middle of the night. And he's like, dude, I promise that's not the reason. I'm trying to shut the garage door. But she was so new in this relationship, and even though this isn't how this dude's life was before Kurtis, this is all she's seeing now that Kurtis is in the picture, and it's too much for her to handle. She thought this man was just too chaotic, not knowing that it was Kurtis bringing all the chaos to his life. And it was too much for her, so she ended up breaking up with this guy. And he's still very heartbroken over it. And I feel bad for him. He tried to help Kurtis out, and in exchange, he destroyed his house, destroyed his relationship. No telling what else this man would have destroyed if they did not get him out the way that they did. And this man literally dodged a bullet by no longer associating with Kurtis. I mean, just imagine if Kurtis was living with him when Kurtis just did this crime that he did. And I was shocked that Kurtis was having females over to his room and hookers allegedly, with his room looking like that. Like, you gotta be super high to be wanting to bang in a room like that. I always had a feeling that it was more than bad luck that was causing everything that was going on in Kurtis's life. He kept just trying to claim, oh, it's bad luck and bad people. But it's like, why are you continuing to choose to be around bad people if they continue to steal from you and do all these things that he's claimed has happened to him the past few years? But it looks like he's definitely a big part of the problem, and I don't blame people not wanting to have anything to do with him, and when he treats people like this when they give him a place to stay. I think jail is obviously the best option for him. Now he doesn't have to worry about ever having to put a roof over his head again. But that is it for this video, guys. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below. Check out my lashes at AccordingtoAmber.com. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.